Yes.
Oh, welcome to the Umami Cat Podcast, episode 4, Tropico versus that Netflix documentary series about Cuba.
Cuba Libre.
Cuba Libre. Tropico versus Cuba Libre. Excellent. That's the name of the episode officially.
Okay.
Yeah. Um.
So this is Supercat.
Yeah. What do you think about Cuba?
I don't believe that I know anything about Cuba.
Okay, but you saw the Cuba Libre series. And
Yes.
It was okay. It was an okay introduction to Cuba.
Yeah, but Cuba is very enigmatic. Like I came from, I went to communist school for a couple of years.
Wow, that's
and
very leftist of you.
yeah, it was actually so much fun. But there
It's like
were
Animal House, but PC.
well, that was the beauty of people in communist school. They weren't PC because they've never known the difference.
Right.
And that was so magical. Like I knew women who had never didn't even know sexism existed.
Okay. Cool.
Not once.
And they became your best friends.
No once in their lives, nobody had told them that women shave their armpits. Like that level.
I have a feeling like you having gone to communist school will come up as a source in a number of episodes.
I don't know. I don't like to be that defined.
No, but I mean, like, it's definitely an interesting parcel of your life. So, I mean, my version of that is I went to Catholic private school with people whose parents had net worths from 9 figures down to merely
Right.
7 or 6 figures, or perhaps there were a few people's parents had like they had a little equity off on their mortgage.
Right.
They
By
had
the
like a
way-
150 house that had gone up and they'd paid off the mortgage, so they were worth like almost 100K. They were on financial aid.
This is some good advice. If you want your children to be Catholic, do not put them
Also-
in Catholic school. Nobody has ever come out of Catholic school Catholic. Like like if you let them go to normal school, they might continue.
So basically, you come from one part of the world, I come from another very different place, and
I come from the negative version of yours.
I mean, if you want to point fingers.
No, I mean like mathematically.
Okay.
Like,
I mean, you're from the
like-
South.
And ideologically.
Oh well.
So I'm saying if you
We're
add
not so different
if you
ideologically.
yours and mine, then we amount to 0.
Well, the thing is, we're both like true libertarians. Before that word became polluted, when it was like a Proudhonian thing. People, we want the liberty of everybody. We're like chaotic good people. So Cuba is an interesting country because Cuba tried to be chaotic good in a way,
Well, Fidel was.
and so did the United States.
Fidel was chaotic.
And they both failed, obviously.
But this is something what I was gonna say that I don't understand Cuba, because in communist school there were a lot of people that were career like third generation communists.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, there was a very close bridge between my school and Cuba. Like there were a lot of Cubans, there were a lot of people that partially lived in Cuba, and people who were wanted to finish high school and move to Cuba immediately. Some to study medicine.
The land of opportunity.
It is believed that Cuba has the best health system in the world. I had a neighbor that was a Chilean Cuban that ambassador in Cuba, and because I was upper middle class, and I was talking to him because I befriended his dog, obviously, very me. And then by befriending his dog, I befriended him because he thought it was cool that his dog had a friend.
Yeah.
And he ended up being this diplomatic, and my sister has lupus, and he was like, we have a vaccine for that. I'm gonna ask around. And then he told me like, no, it's only when it's starting.
Yeah.
And that doesn't exist in any other place.
And how many years ago was that?
Say 2012, 2013.
So it's too late for Lady Gaga as well.
Also,
but at that time,
Lady Gaga doesn't know about this. So you see,
only on Umami Cat.
And Americans, they have this thing with communism in Cuba that it's the boogeyman. In fact, when I was in anthropology school and my anthropology teacher was teaching us about taboos, he was saying like the taboo of incest,
Yeah.
And in the States, the taboo of communism. That's
well,
the example.
I'll tell you, if we ever have, somebody that we care about who is diagnosed with lupus early on, I would love to pay for the Cubans to give us a vaccine so we can save their life and allow them to have a higher quality of life, longer life expectancy. However, if I did, as a U.S. citizen, I would be violating sanctions and I would be doing trade. Yeah, so
Ooh.
it'd actually be like subject to potential prison penalties for purchasing
Oh.
a vaccine for a loved one.
Yeah, well, yes, I do believe that there's clearly been a lot of mistakes made every time that communism has been trying to be installed in the state and in society. And I know all these things, and also I've read the
Well,
stories
it sounds like there's two
about a
Cubas.
lot of Cubans that are refugees.
Okay.
So I literally say I don't know
From the
anything.
other Cuba.
I don't know anything
Right,
about
and then they
Cuba.
go to Florida and they become like ultra anti-communist right wingers who, yeah, who are like hardline against Castro. Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
So I would love to go. That is my
And
number
like
one place.
Venezuela would not have sustained its regime as long as it has without the playbook that the Cuban intelligence had picked up, defending Fidel's life and so on
I have no
over decades.
I have no horse in this race.
Well, neither do I,
I
really.
just have curiosity. I don't really
Well, my horse is with the people. I mean, really, like as a somebody who believes in the liberty of all people, like I would like to see Cubans achieve their dreams and get a less authoritarian government who may actually still be like leftist. Because think about it, if you're coming from like a left off kind of government, and then you go to like, a tax code statist style government without the military thing. They also have two currencies. Did you know that
no.
in Cuba? Well, they just got rid of the second currency. It's called the cuck. Is the Cubano Unidad Convertible or something. Maybe it's the other way around because of how Spanish does that. And basically, it's like dollars the central bank
Wait, I
has
have a joke for
for
you.
the rich Cubans who are part of the
This
elite,
this
the
friend
system.
this friend who
Yeah.
lives in Spain found a place called the uh the pea cocktail.
Uh huh.
And then he was, yes, it sounds terrible in
I
both
like it.
Spanish and English.
I think it's good.
Pea cocktail,
Sure.
like a
I'm
cocktail made out of pea.
look. I like puns. I like campy stuff.
No, but
Whatever.
also it's pico in Spanish.
Oh,
So
okay.
it sounds terrible in
Picotel.
both
Ah,
languages.
picotel. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I love that. It's hard to say
Well, it's
something.
like the pico and the tail meet. That's coitus. So that's
And
fun.
also if a cock and a tail meet,
Sure.
it's also sex.
Also,
So I'm just saying it takes a certain amount of genius to create a sexual pun in two languages.
yes, it's a Heisen pun. I didn't see that one coming, did I?
Yeah. I'm sorry I interrupted you. It was just too good to
Oh, I don't
pass.
know. I mean, I'm just trying to encapsulate in a short podcast. So I mean, here's the thing. You and I aren't going to understand Cuba. If Cubans understood Cuba and they had the power, presumably they would then like create Cuba as like the society they wanted. And maybe that'll happen. And I hope that happens. I hope that happens for the Venezuelans. I hope that happens for everybody. Really. But having said that, meanwhile, I was playing this game Tropico that you found to be like maybe a little racist.
There was a lot of Spanish that wasn't proper Spanish. They kept saying presidente, and I was like, that's not a word.
Yeah,
And
because of the role,
are you trying to say residente, which is resident? And then
like the Calle 13 guy. I
right.
think he's really cool.
I
I
mean,
would actually like to
I
imagine the Calle 13 guy Residente as Tropico
I
dictator.
canceled him in my heart.
Why? What happened?
He on the
He hit a girl.
no, but on the pandemic. Now
Uh-huh.
that would be like truly canceled,
Sure.
right? So in the pandemic, when it started and people were losing their jobs and dying, he made a song
Uh-huh.
about how sad it was to be so rich and successful. And
Yeah.
I I canceled him in my heart.
Well, it's
Not
bad
for real.
timing, but I mean, that was a popular genre for a long time. BoJack, Mad Men, etc. But anyway, we could do an episode about that if you want. Anyway, I just like the idea of Residente as a dictator of a small island nation, and he's trying to be woke, so he does good social policies. He's like, I'm a good dictator. I'm Residente. I'm a good dictator, right?
He's definitely a very idealistic man with in his heart is exactly where it should be. But I
Uh
don't
huh.
think he understands like the economy. Maybe he does. Maybe I'm being judgy.
He doesn't have a lot of
But
silver, but he has a lot of copper.
yeah, I
So he
always
has the supply chain concept.
I'm a huge GOT fan, and I always remember this quote. I would love to look it up where it said like steel, so he was strong, but he will bend before it breaks. Renly, yeah,
Yeah.
Renly's copper, gorgeous but useless, and Robert Baratheon is uh, iron. It serves to nothing but kill or hurt.
Okay. I mean, technically, steel is better for weaponry, but I mean, and that was like the premise of Stannis.
Right.
He was like a
He's
more
amazing.
disciplined
Amazing.
Robert,
But he would
and
break.
he was forged in the flames of the Rylor cult that he was involved in. He's having sex
Yes.
with the redhead, making a shadow baby to kill his brother. It's kind of weird.
I would love to be able to make a shadow baby and just send them off to assassination of anyone that I want.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that would put me off. If I knew that that might be a consequence of, I would probably consider alternative birth control methods.
No, and you store the light. That is the thing. Like she
Uh-huh.
absorbs all the light from a man through sex, and then
So
releases the shadow.
here's my
baby.
question: Is Fidel Castro? Now I'm looping this back. You don't think I was going to do it?
Shadow baby?
No, come on. No, is Fidel Castro the Robert Baratheon of Cuba, and Raul is the Stannis?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. That's exactly.
Is it Raul?
That is, I think so.
I didn't fuck that up, right?
This is ridiculous because I've thought about this.
You never thought about that.
No,
you thought about it before.
Like Robert and Ragnar also, men that are just hammers.
You compared them to Fidel.
No, I hadn't thought about Fidel, but I think about them together as men that are built to conquer and rebel.
Yeah, they're experientialists. They never had a plan.
And Fidel is also one of the best like military geniuses of the last centuries, and nobody can deny that. And he wanted to do that so bad that he did it. Well, and when they got to the throne, they were like, I don't like this. I don't get this. Yeah. Which is the same thing that happened to both Ragnar and Robert.
True. Right. Because, yeah, I think he was an experientialist. I think Che was an uber experientialist. He was so, like, Fidel at least understood how to hang with your mafia and maintain a relative, peace, and as the money flows and people are enjoying their lives. And Che could not quit, and he got kicked out by them. So this was something that was in the documentary that I thought was really interesting. Another thing I thought was really interesting is that Fidel was not initially a leftist. And
he was always a kind of a socialist.
He always cared about people, but he didn't necessarily adopt the tenets of orthodox Marxist Leninist.
Yeah, he was
thought.
He was just a man with the soul to conquer, and this is one
of
my.
He was like a kind of a and he's a charismatic guy. He's kind of a huckster, really.
Yes, I really
think in a Spanish way. This
is a big problem in politics right now. Is that in order to be a politician, aka go to the office and write and read shit, you have to also be a personality, be a media person, be a spokesperson.
And he was good at that.
Be a person that's obsessed with power and has the desire to conquer. And
so that was an interesting point from the documentary for me as well.
All of these people are probably not the ones more qualified to do this stuff. Like probably everyone that's qualified to rule us, it's in a university giving a thing right now. For example, Pamela Giles, I find that she is the biggest activist in years. She could be the most important activist in the world.
But a frightening politician.
But she became a politician, and it's really not her thing.
Yeah. Whereas you like Camila Viejo, and she's more of a get things done.
Yeah.
So you would say AOC's more like Giles, even though Giles is much older.
I always
and Camila Viejo is an approximate age. But you said Camila Viejo is like a policy-minded, incremental, like get things done. Whereas AOC makes like a big noise and doesn't get bills passed.
Yes,
but she changes the conversation, which Camila Viejo doesn't really do because the media in Chile is dominated by the right wing government. And this is what I think is funny about Tropico. Is that I've lived in Argentina, I've lived in Chile, so I can vibe with these Bulgarian guys, even though I think that I agree. Like they had this English voice actress do the voice of the Latina lady who was like
she says very racist stuff.
You think? Why do you think it's racist? Because it's too sexual? And
no, it's racist.
She's like too flighty.
Like she's just dumb, and she says in one point like, "Oh, it's great that us Cubans don't have healthcare and we die if we're poor." And I was just talking about how Cuba has one of the best healthcares, and health systems. So I'm like,
Well, the joke
they,
is she says that she just goes. She stepped on a sea urchin and she just went home, drank all the rum, and like her friend took it out, and she wasn't like a weak person who had to go to the clinic,
well,
and that's funny.
this is Chile,
It's
so
like that's a funny joke.
we do this. Like
Well, that's true
I have
also.
very gory stories about my dad doing crazy stuff to himself to avoid going to the doctor.
Because you can't afford it, right?
Yes, and also we're
Yeah.
crazy. Like
Also,
people in my family are crazy.
your dad is particularly crazy.
One time my brother, no, we're all crazy. One time my brother got a big cut playing basketball, and he thought it was bleeding a lot. He thought, what if I put a hot knife in it?
And did that help?
Yeah, but he said it hurt a lot.
Well, of course it did, but it accomplished a very important sanitation goal, so
Yeah, and
it's worth it.
my dad has like amputated some parts of him that are small.
Well, yeah, and he chiseled his gum in order to avoid going to the dentist as well,
Yeah,
which is kind of with a nail,
I think
with a fucking nail.
I think part of
That's insane.
I've been a cook for years and also like a smith. So it's funny because I'm very feminine, whatever, and then I have this
Are you?
construction worker hands, like are more callous than hands, like
And I come off kind of macho, and I have these very dainty computer programmer hands.
us poor people or people that work with their hands, we look down on people without calluses. The other day I saw a meme of a politician waving. And the writing was like, this person has never used these hands. And
you know what's funny about my hands though? When I was 20, I thought, hey, the guy in Seven clipped off the tips of his fingernails in order to avoid being identifiable. What if I did that? And I actually tried it, and you see I have these scars on my fingertips.
That is terrible.
Because I tried doing that.
That makes no sense.
Well, when I rolled FBI prints for immigration purposes to get my background check, and when I did, there are these blank spots because of that damage. So if I had like been like as meticulous as Kevin Spacey's serial killer guy and continued to do it instead of just doing it as like a laugh, then I could actually avoid having viable prints that I wouldn't be able to get the background check for one thing. So so the guy from Seven could not go emigrate to another country. He'd close that door in order to really commit. But I have not. I didn't go that far, fortunately. For instance, you're really cute. But I might have to put your head in a box, and that would like I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be the guy who's married you instead. I'm scared of hearing this. Oh, sorry. I'm just trying to make a joke out of Seven.
I like Seven.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. It's
I'm
kind
overdoing it with the Seven bit.
Very creepy. I found Seven to be half like an MTV video, and it makes sense. I'm sorry. It's good though. I love young Brad Pitt.
Are you not a David Fincher fan?
Yeah, but I don't think he's that good. Like if we're gonna talk about living directors that are working right now, I would put this guy as like a six. But I'm talking like a Bong Joon is 10, so it's hard to get there.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, Wes Anderson, where?
Wait, I thought we were talking about Cuba.
Yeah, but like Wes Anderson.
I think if Wes Anderson made a movie about Cuba, it would be interesting. And it would be better than Tropico.
But from 1 to 10, where would you put Wes Anderson?
Like among directors?
Yeah.
Like an 8.
Okay.
He's kind of idiosyncratic, but he's truly great inside his own oeuvre, which is iconic.
I put Nolan in 6. So do you think?
I think I would maybe give Nolan a 7, but I mean, sure.
Okay, so you're being very.
It depends on the Nolan movie.
Michael Bay.
Like 5. He's like right at the apex of where money and like a general creative sensibility around what people would like meet at a commercial scale, and I think that's cool. I think he's had a nice life, and I don't have anything bad to say about Michael Bay. That's why he's exactly a 5.
Right. I would say like a 3, but this is why.
Well, sure, but that's the artsy like. Oh, I hate Michael Bay because he's so commercial. Like I'm just calling it as a neutral.
No, I just don't enjoy action movies. I get sleepy for some reason. But I believe that Quentin is a 10, which makes me cancelable. I can give you my Twitter so you can cancel me. Because
yeah, you're the.
But he's. I love his.
You're the cancelable, not PC chick.
Yes.
Partido Comunista, the PC.
Imagine how your country could be so wrong that the Communist Party is the only one that's making sense.
You know what's funny? I imagine an alternative reality where we never met, and you never leave Chile, and Chile goes through all this stuff that's going through,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes left, and it becomes like a hard left, like spiky post-Allendista style. So it's not as hardcore as like Cuba or Venezuela, you know.
I
But
think
like Chile still has a military. So the whole key, like, what if people in the left in Chile were like, okay, guys, what happened last time, what happened in a lot of other countries, is we didn't have the support of the military. So how can we possibly sustain a leftist government? We know the military is just going to do a coup. So what we have to do is get our people in the military. And I don't think they've done this, right? I think Chile's military is pretty right wing by and large
it's yeah.
in the makeup of the
It's
people in it.
scary how independent they are. It doesn't seem that they care that much about what Chilean law or Chilean stuff. Like it's
Yeah,
happened and people are like, you're breaking the law. And the leaders come out and they're like, we don't care.
right.
What are you going to do about it? And that's a really scary attitude to have of the
It's a little
military.
mafia, yeah, you know.
They're in Rosas. He was the leader of the police, and he committed so many crimes. And every time he committed a crime, he would do a press release where he just smirked.
Right. Yeah, because he's
I,
like, yeah, I mean, he's the
my
Gestapo,
my
basically.
part that is detached from reality finds it kind of cool.
Yeah, it's aesthetic. The level of confidence. Same thing with like the Pinochet, because I never lived under Pinochet,
Oof.
so I don't have any association of fear from Pinochet.
He's terrifying.
So I can appreciate Pinochet's theatrical manner
He bought a cape.
and his way, la Iglesia Romana,
Apostolica
yeah.
Romana.
How many were there?
Uh,
Apostolic Roman Catholic Church,
I think
Catholico.
so.
Yeah,
No, it's
Catholic
Pinochet.
is also an adjective as well as
Pinochet
a
scares
group.
me. If I had a Bogart, it would be either Pinochet or an army guy.
For me, it would be a flash crash on my own decks.
Like what would show up?
That
A screen?
that would make me look
Would it
horrible.
be a computer screen?
Yeah, it would be like a huge. No, I see the wick like play out, like you would open the box and like this wick would go, and you see it on log scale, and it would go down to zero, like just. But it all happens like whoa, like you know, and then it goes back up, and all these people have been liquidated, and they're all raging on Twitter.
What would be your ridiculous?
Um.
Like what
Oh,
would
what would
happen?
it turn into? Like, uh, I mean, different people do it in different ways. They like pay people back, or like they use their token,
No, but it has to
or
be funny.
they bail in token holders.
This is ridiculous.
Obviously, so I don't know. I would do a Dogecoin airdrop to try to make whole all of the affected persons. Not, but I won't. TLDR disclaimer: I won't. By the way, but like if I had magic,
Mm-hmm.
then it would be everybody would be made whole with Dogecoin somehow, not from my funding, just magically. Like if Dogecoin Coinbase would go out to them, whatever. Okay, I'm not paying for it, and I would go, ha ha ha, they got the Doge, everybody's happy, no problem. There you go. And that would be my ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know what can make a policeman not scary.
So like as a guy, so like speaking of which, as a guy, if I can just talk about my work for just a teensy second here, as a guy who is publishing a DeFi thing, and then maybe people lose money on it individually, maybe there's a big fucking spill like that, and a lot of people lose money at once, and it's like, come on, what? That's horrible. That's not an acceptable liquidation on that wick, dude. But you know, liquidity is a real thing, and it's like a scale system, and it's like commercial in nature, and in this case it's distributed, so I'm like using freedom of speech to publish it, and then I may like operate in it and other people do their thing, and it just runs on Bitcoin, it runs on Litecoin, it runs on Dogecoin, it just goes, and at some point things may go wrong and people may get hurt, you know. And so as like a market participant, like I can try and be a part of the liquidity complex that's supporting that, and how much liquidity, and how's my cash flow and my ability to maintain as like an institutional presence of some kind. So then when I think about what it's like to be a dictator, or whatever you want to call the chairman, the president, the how to properly pronounce it, presidente.
Presidente.
Say presidente. Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about a complicated system with a lot of people, and so you have the catastrophic things. You have balance of payments crises. You have the currency crises. You have natural disasters. You know, and then you have the default thing, which is the inequality and the poverty. And like, never mind the inequality. First, like, just what's the quality of life of a lot of people? And it's like, well, they don't have running
No,
water.
it's terrible. It's
They don't have
this
whatever.
this
I mean, in
country is
Chile,
horrible.
you have running water at least,
Not everywhere.
but most people have running water.
Yeah.
So that's something. There aren't that many people living in extreme poverty in Chile. We could call the people in Campamentos
But
living in something of an extreme
I
poverty.
just with the pandemic, it has gotten like we are now in one of the lowest places of if you recount the different countries. Like starvation came back.
Yeah,
Every newspaper is saying this is the worst political crisis since Pinochet.
yeah. So I mean, I think what we can learn from Chile, I mean, from Cuba,
Yeah.
is and the Cuba Libre theme and the name of that
I
series
love that series. Please watch it
is
if you're into
premised on the
history.
idea that we should be sympathetic to Cuba, and why shouldn't we, right? Um, because what the Cubans were after in the 1800s when they tried to go independent was the same thing that the United States was after, and those fundamental ideals are common. And I say, okay, that's cool, you know. And I really liked it. I thought it was interesting how Batista was actually not like so much of a Marxist, but he was a labor reformist, which I'm a labor reformist too. But it got reformed in a lot. You know, I work in industries where the labor is treated so well that they become capital. They invest shares. Sometimes it's not a lot. Sometimes it's pretty good. You know, and either
Never,
way, it can add up to real estate, whatever. You know,
never been properly hired with the law.
right? Much less offered share vesting in the franchise.
And I've never worked the legal 8 hours.
Right. So we come from very different life paths, don't we?
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting for us to talk about society, therefore, because we have that dual vantage. You
Yes.
know.
It's just it's hard because as a Latina and as a Latin Americanista, which is like us that are pro us and like fuck everyone else and like this is important. We're important. Fidel and Che are very important to us. I don't agree with his policies afterwards, but the way that he stood up for us in a way that nobody has since, it it's very important to me and to most of us. We grew up thinking that the states has us in shackles and we're gonna be in their doghouse for the rest of our lives. And the idea of that not happening, I can't even imagine it. So watching Fidel and watching Che trying and also developing military strategies that would have worked. Che wanted to build 5, 6 Vietnams, and he said they would run out of military, and they would,
Well, they run out of public support.
and also literally like the funds and like
Sure. Well, I mean, essentially, Nixon going off the gold window was precipitated by the bad deficits from running Vietnam for
right.
like 8 years.
So 5 Vietnams would melt them,
Yeah.
and that was the first time I imagined it actually falling. But yeah, like it's hard to talk about Cuba because there's so many different and even aspects, like this is the emotional aspect that doesn't necessarily have to do with how the model works.
Well, and it's interesting how Fidel survived assassination attempts so many times. It was interesting how basically Batista had like a 5% approval rating, like Pinera has now, basically, right? There's only like a few citadels where people are like, "Yay, Pinera, he represents us," you know. Everybody else fucking hates him. Everything's fucked. And as a Chilean longtime resident who still is not a permanent resident, I still don't have a fucking ID card. I still can't get a proper bank account.
They're not gonna do it.
I'm locked out of Bitcoin exchange now, so I can't. I got to use my U.S. thing, and that's my last. I'm almost unbanked. I am in a precarious, like I'm not in a precarious situation as far as capitalization and income opportunities. I can make income from the market. I have clients, blah blah blah, right? But how could I fucking get the money? I gotta go. Like imagine if I had no banking. I still can't do anything. I can't pay my rent. I can't pay for groceries.
Well, as a poor
You know,
person, I am only not allowed to have bank accounts except for the state one that
right?
is really bad.
So I'm in the same boat as far as that goes with you,
Yeah.
right?
It's not easy,
So
man.
I mean, but the thing is, the difference is that I have bitcoins and I have optionality. I can go elsewhere, and you know, I've got a half of mine too because I'm fucking tired of it. So you know, when I play Tropico, and the fact that you can play it different ways, and that it's not really necessarily about Fidel, but you can role play as Fidel, and you can role play as Batista type, who's like in bed with the mob,
Yes.
and you can try to be like the social democrat middle road version, which is actually the best way to play the game. Or even with the libertarian streak, you can legalize drugs. For instance, I always do that. Like I don't see the downside. You lose points with religious people.
It's confusing to me because I always thought like let's just legalize drugs. Like what
Yeah,
is the point? But then I saw actually Anthony Bourdain, like may he rest in peace. I still miss him. With Cuban or Colombian, I think. And the Colombian was like, we need to legalize drugs and take the money away from this dangerous people.
right.
And Anthony Bourdain was like, as a junkie, we can't do that. All of us are gonna die.
Yeah,
And that made me. Well, this is the thing about
but he
Supercat.
died anyway from
It's
having his brain fucked and being terminally depressed from like his addictive
yeah,
recovery dynamic or
yeah.
something, right?
Well, yeah. The nature of Supercat is I don't believe that I pretty much know anything because everything's too complex and I don't have all the information. So I also don't know what to feel about this.
Yeah,
Maybe we could like remove the permit of people that have had problems with the law involving drugs.
yeah. I mean,
Would
like
that be fascist?
marijuana seems to be okay because marijuana only makes you very, very sleepy,
No, but it is.
obese, underemployed,
I
indebted, and behind on your child support.
but
So you
terrible.
don't die
No,
from it,
but
you know?
I have suffered with marijuana addiction, and
Oh, really?
it's not fun. It's not easy, and we should stop telling people that it's not a thing that happens.
Well, anyways, it still is a huge. I mean, the trade-off is you get all this state tax revenue, so that's better funding
Yes.
state. So in like the United States, the federal government has this printing press, which is what the whole gold window thing was about. And you had a lot of inflation, and they did a petrodollar. So the federal government kind of had it again, and they really did it with like Reaganomics and all this. But states have always had to finance themselves, and you know, so I'm a big fan of the city genre and game design,
Hmm.
and I'm a big fan of like complex systems that say something about society. So one of my favorite game designers when I was a young, you know, Jack Kerouac reading college kid
I love that about you.
who was not really into business and economics yet.
What year?
In like 2005 6,
How old were you?
like 20, like 19, 20, 21.
Okay, I'm getting in at 28. I don't think that's that bad.
Well, yeah, so
27
I
actually.
started like hardcore learning about business and finance completely self determined when I was 21. I created an LLC, I started producing a game. But before that, I was involved in other projects and I was doing games journalism and I was more just in the humanities as far as where my head was. And I was having a good time there. Anyway, so I reached out to this guy, Paolo Pedersini, who is this Italian anarchist guy and he's a game designer who makes satirical games. So he made this game called the McDonald's game, and it's a sim game about McDonald's. And it
I
was
love that.
and it was like here's where you can like bulldoze the rainforest to make way for the factory bovine farming, so you get the meat. And if you want, you can like give them animal feed to save some money, but then they'll get some of them will get mad cow disease. You have to burn them. And if you don't do it fast enough and it accidentally grabs the mad cow disease infected cow, then people begin to get mad cow disease, and you can see the little like little Lego people
Well, this is
go get fucking prions eating their head. You know,
right. I just don't
it's
think
great.
I don't think meat is worth it. Like
Right.
I love
I mean, this is the point of the game,
I
right?
love this steak more than any like not like just like everyone else. But it's if you see what it does to everything, it's not worth it.
I agree, and I think that this video game that was a simple flash game. It had 4 panels: McDonald's corporate, the South American country where you are doing the farming, the cattle in their pens, where you give them the RGBH and all this shit to give them a boost. And then there was I think the consumer level. I don't exactly remember all the details, but it did a beautiful job of evoking what it's like to be in the mindset of a McDonald's executive, and then you're disassociate. So when you're in a video game and you're doing well, you learn the contours of the system. You begin to optimize it. Whether you're racing, you're trying to optimize time, or you're Mario, and you're trying to, get the Star Road,
Mm-hmm.
right? Star Road's epic, right? It's
Yes.
beautiful, beautiful Star Road tile set, and good soundtrack. Anyway, so whatever you're doing in the game, it's an associative process because you're learning and you're engaging with it. So then when you make games that are about dysphoric social commentaries, the pleasure of making money as a faux McDonald's executive is
Yeah.
then eclipsed by the horror of internalizing all this detail about the system. And this is how his follow-up, Oilgarchy 2008, was as well, where you're an oil executive and you're like in Nigeria and you're in Iraq, and
That's cool.
it was really good.
No, that's cool.
So
But I like without I love satire a lot.
yeah,
It's one of my favorite genres, and Americans get really confused at it, which is really annoying, especially as a person that's very ironic and has to talk to a lot of Americans. It's
yeah. I
but
mean, I could see Americans playing these games and being like, "I was really good at that game, and I got millions of dollars, and like I won," and not,
I
like
right.
internalizing all of the things.
I do think it could be less biased and a little bit less racist. But if I played video games, I would play it because I've always wanted to build a city. I just hate video games.
Have you played SimCity, the original?
No, I just don't like any video games.
But you do like the idea of building a city.
Yeah, I would if I liked. I enjoyed it.
You would enjoy it if you enjoyed it.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
tautological.
But it's true. Like I also wish I enjoyed football. It seems like they have a lot of fun.
Right.
I just don't.
Yeah. I feel like I would enjoy going to a casino. I've never been.
Oh, it's so fun. I always went with my grandpa when he was a ludopath.
Oh yeah. I would like that. That's my last refuge of an idea of bonding with my dad, before he dies, is just taking him to casinos, like having some drinks and chatting and like losing our money slowly and making a few wins and having a bit of fun. He seems to like that shit too, and frankly, I do too. I mean, I've been in the markets for a long time, but actually, I have like de-ludopathologized myself, significantly. However, to be fair, I have had trading losses when I was trying to leg into what were the low risk strategies, but I was doing it in big chunks, and I lost a few $100s here and there, and then I lost like $2,000 in like 2 minutes, like a couple weeks ago,
Awful.
in like early morning. I just happened to wake up and do this. And that was, I suppose there was a little bit of the gambling impulse behind those moves, because those were not the most efficient ways to do that. What I
Was
was,
it Sunday morning?
it was Friday morning. So I suppose there is just a little tinkle of ludopathic energy in me still. And I mean, I did it big time with my whole venture. Anyway,
Well, I think it has
so it runs in
something.
the family probably.
Yes, I think it has something to do with genetics.
Yeah.
Everyone in my family has struggled
But
with
my mother
some.
was not ludopathic. She bought, banking stocks and shit. She like held shit, reinvested dividends,
She was a shopping freak. She had like 5 closets.
Right, but like her portfolio was like sort of the vanilla kind of indexy. Maybe she wasn't on the index. She had like different weightings and things, but like it was fine.
Well, one time I needed a jacket because I'm poor, and she told me I have a lot of jackets that I haven't even gotten the tag off
Yeah.
because I just buy so much clothes.
Yeah.
So
So
just
she
sent
gave
me
it to
one,
you, yeah.
and
And then you were like, do I sell this or do I love it?
in Chile that is 150 luca, which is like 40%, no, like 60% of every salary I've ever had.
Uh, it's a lot of, that's a lot of little money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And it really do be like that. And this is why there are so many wealthy communists as well, is because when you are when you grow up comfortable, and then the idea that people are living in a perpetual anxiety trap of scarcity mindset is like both it's weird, it's funny, it's laughable,
Yeah.
it's sad,
No, a lot of
it's
us,
hard to relate to. And then you go through it,
a lot of
and
us
it's easier to
wonder,
relate to,
a
right?
lot of us wonder whether it's depression or it's just being poor.
So like I had it kind of cushy in America, and I moved to Argentina in a part in order to be ambitious and try to get into a lead game designer position at age 23, and I did. So that was the trade-off. But then the costs were greater than I expected, and I lived in poverty. Of course, I have the safety net. It's like that pulp song. The roaches on the wall. He was call your daddy. And
Stop it
he
all,
will
yeah.
stop it all.
You'll never
He
live
will
like
stop it
common people.
all. I love the William Shatner. He will stop it all. William Shatner version. Um,
Pulp is amazing.
do you wanna sleep with common people like me?
Jarvis Cocker, I miss you so much.
I'm gonna be sad when William Shatner dies. I'm a little bit, not too sad.
I am so
I'm gonna
sad.
be a little more sad when Joyce Carol Oates dies. And these people are in their 80s; they could die any year, right? I'm gonna be pretty sad when Bill Murray dies. That might be a little further
He
off.
always looks so sad.
Also,
Is he depressed?
probably most funny people are.
I like to trick myself that my depression makes me funny.
Yeah, well, I'm not depressed. I'm a little bit hypomanic. I think that's my thing.
Well, that's fun. That's the problem of
Hypomanic is a much better life than depressed. Yeah,
yeah, like I'm supposed to get both, but I never do. It's a trap.
and I mean hypomanic is also better than manic. I like to think of hypomanic as like the 21st century, more efficient bipolar 2.0 that has been like calibrated into a tight wavelength that is oddly like basically neurodivergence that's high functioning is an ideal mutation adaptation of the brain
Mm-hmm.
to the demands of being a primate in the 21st century, which is to be a pseudo mechanistic, researching, scientifically thinking entity. So you have to keep abstract shit in your head and juggle it. And you have to worry also about what does the state think about me? What do people think about me on fucking social media for some shit that I said 8 years
I
ago,
don't
and so on,
understand social
and a number
media.
of things.
Why are you all taking social media so seriously? It's just like MySpace. Has that same level of depth.
Honestly, I think part of the reason why social media got toxic and the whole woke, there's this, people on the right say, oh, it's woke, and it's like a broad brush of the whole movement, which contains a lot of value, and it actually contains a number of movements,
And a lot
right, within the different special interest
of
groups,
reading.
and that has achieved some good things. However, I think at some level, it achieved what it was going to achieve.
No.
We got, well, I mean, there's still a lot of room, but it achieved a lot. Then we got the fascist blowback. Then we kind of overcame that. Now we're in the sort of center left statist authoritarian thing, and we're still in this not quite peacetime pandemic situation. And it's kind of shitty. I mean, here we're in Chile, we're under lockdown. It's a nightmare. I just,
Right.
just get me out of here.
Me too, right? That's the biggest Chilean meme. Like we're all like, please get me out of there. There's this meme of a fetus that is being born, and the fetus is like, please Norway, please Norway, please Norway.
And then it's like pokes his head out and it's like, fuck.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is a South American hospital.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Well, anyways, so in game design, we have this tradition of using the more complicated games to do sophisticated commentaries. And like in SimCity, you can borrow a lot of money because cities in the United States in the 1900s had access to municipal bond markets. These are tax-free coupons. It's beautiful, right? So there's always investment money for them.
Yeah.
And states and so on, like they've had their fiscal issues. California goes broke every so often because California's revenues are so cyclical, and they're having a big problem now because a lot of rich people are leaving California. And I think this is going to be a bigger problem globally as well. I was reading about this. As people keep migrating.
The Spanish flu, the rats, the situation, it all caused cities to be dissolved because everyone went back home.
Oh yeah.
It's never not happened.
That's another cycle.
That's never not happened.
Right. So people are repopulating Iowa. You're getting this purple politics effect in the U.S. Well, so the thing about an economy like Cuba is that you can't do that, right? Because it's like, first of all, you're at this bare bones level of technology and production, and you of course don't have access to this federally subsidized through the tax code municipal bond market that's pretty liquid in U.S. dollars. You have access to expensive U.S. dollars out in a very limited quantity. It's like in tens of thousands instead of borrowing hundreds of thousands. So you can actually go balls deep. It's not really appropriate to do it early on, but you can keep borrowing in SimCity and just sort of borrow the right amount to like buy a few things that you really need, and you optimize your growth rate that way so that you're beating the interest, right? And this is what I was talking to you about finance. Is that really that's what finance is all about, right?
I just need money. That's it. I need
Right.
money.
And so this is the
so
mindset.
Hard.
This is a different mindset,
so hard.
Right?
So I would decided like, why should I keep doing this thing where I go buy flour and make a cake, then really try to get more money than what I spend on the flour, because I do make cakes and it's terrible. It's so bad. So I was like, why don't I go to the river of money? The
Yeah.
the mortar of money,
I
and just
remember
try to get it fresh.
I remember one time in 2015, I clicked on Bitcoin and I covered some futures and I was like underhedged, and then the market popped in like a minute, and I rehedged, and I was like, that just increased the capital account by $500, and then I went for a little walk and I paid 500 pesos with a coin to get like a shrimp empanada.
Yo.
And well, yeah, I was just thinking about, was it clean?
Nobody cleans the
Probably not. Yeah, so
I
the
don't
joke's
get
on
it.
me for paying so little for my food. And I put a little mustard on it. It was pretty good. And I was thinking, like, let's not dwell on the other thing. And I was thinking, how crazy is it that she has to like do all of that and give me this pretty good food, you know, asterisks. Um, for this little coin for 500 pesos, and I made $500, click click like that in a minute. And it's weird, right? And that really struck me.
Yeah, well,
And like, and when I think about that trade, that's little money as well, right?
I've
But
noticed. I've met you for a while, and I thought like, this man makes money by clicking shit.
yeah,
And
that's really weird.
and after a lot of years, I'm like, if that is possible, why am I at the mall trying to sell like a massaging equipment? It's so much work.
To like clueless people as well.
It's so much work.
Yeah. So economics is weird, and making games about it is kind of interesting. So the racist English lady, not the English lady wasn't racist. The English lady was doing a job, and the writing was racist. But I don't think that the Bulgarian guys who made that game were trying to be racist. I just think that they were coming at it from their perspective as Bulgarians, as like, yeah, like a lot of countries are ruled by dictators, and sometimes they call themselves communists, and sometimes they call themselves capitalists, and they have these different policies. And they made a game about that, and the game is good.
But I don't blame the voice
dressing.
actress.
Well, of course, she's just getting paid to do a job.
Actresses get a very little
It's
money,
the writer's
so
fault.
they have to take whatever job they can to make rent.
The writer should have contacted somebody over the internet who is a Latina or Latino writer, and they should have paid them as a consultant, add them as a writing credit, and had them go over all the scripts and have them like tweak it. That's all they had to do, and they didn't think to do that, and that's lazy of them as a charitable interpretation.
I think maybe they wanted it. Maybe they just thought about it and they were like, no, we want to be a little racist.
Well, the other thing is that I got Tropico 6 because it was on sale, and you can do it on an archipelago. And I like the city building, so I want to build a bigger city. So I'm like, great, Tropico 6 is offering me that. It's on sale. I'll get it.
Sure.
So.
Oh, I gotta get Minecraft.
I played Minecraft a long time ago, but you do you. I mean, it's a good game. You'll feel a childlike joy.
Wait, I don't like video games, as I said, but my router went away, and we have to find a way to bond.
1 second.
Yeah, so once I heard about these actors like either refusing racist parts or do they have a moral responsibility over what they pick? I remember the story about this Chilean actor who was starving, like gonna be evicted, no bills paid, and he's an actor, right? So somebody calls him and it's like, we need a mime, and you're qualified. And he was like, I will never fucking do mime. I hate mimes. And yeah, so he just rather starve. So like, maybe you can refuse racist jobs.
Yeah.
Would you refuse a racist job if you were hungry?
Like, is it racist against white people?
No, like it's racist against people
Is,
that are privileged.
is it bigoted against white people?
No, it's racist against black people, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I would not. I mean, like, I want to do a lot of media production with the Francis Bacon conspiracy,
I love that.
and the Francis Bacon conspiracy is not racist. So no, we would not produce anything
No,
racist.
but if you were an actor or
Uh,
something, and you were having a
if I
rough
were,
job,
I'm gonna be honest. If I were a Gen X actor in the '90s or the 2000s, and I was offered something racist by 2015 or 2020 standards, I may well have taken the script and then grown older, and then found myself retroactively canceled for being in that movie, and being like, huh? And then being
I
like,
love retracted
oh,
cancel.
and then being like, getting me on my phone with the publicist, and then be like, hey, why do they think I'm bad? And then my publicist would like explain it, like, well, you see, there's been a cultural shift in perceptions about what was acceptable, and I go, oh, okay, so what do we write on my social media to handle this, or do I do a press release? What, and then I would just sort of listen to my
You gotta get the
publicist.
note up. That is the key. Everybody, when somebody gets canceled, somebody tweets like, "How many hours until the note's up?"
Uh-huh.
And it always happens.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
I can imagine like Matthew McConaughey having done something like that was like judged racist and being sort of canceled and coming out and being like, hey everybody, I'm just glad we're having this conversation about moving forward the whole human race. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't like that man.
you think he's disingenuous?
I no, there's a lot of things like he had to be forced to marry the mother of his like three kids, and he said he doesn't wear deodorant because he likes his pheromones out there, and that is disgusting.
Well, I don't wear deodorant, but it's not because I want to put out my pheromones. It's just that I don't care to wear deodorant.
You should.
And I don't mock about Matthew McConaughey.
Everyone needs to wear deodorant. If you're worried about aluminum, you can buy deodorant without aluminum.
I like to imagine an island nation where Matthew McConaughey is a dictator, and he follows a policy where, okay, we got a nice tourism sector over here,
He would
and we
kill.
got a diversified agricultural base
He will kill
on the inland,
every woman that is over a
and
hundred pounds.
we have a nice assortment of minerals. We got a uranium mine. We have a nuclear reactor to power the island. We got sort of a Mr. Rogers, sort of older Matthew McConaughey who settled into his life as a politician. We got a nice residential area. I don't know. Anyway, I got a nice military to suppress any uprisings.
I
Um,
always said if I was a dictator, because they always fall, or like a very radical president, because they always fall because the military riots, right? I would pull a Cleopatra and just have sex with every leader of the military. That way I would get all the intel and
you would
they
fluid
can
bond yourself.
I would Cleopatra.
The problem is that
Brilliant.
as you age, you wouldn't be able to continue doing that.
Why not? Women only get hornier with age.
Well, yeah, but you would maybe, well, you'd have to have the same like generalissimos who have been like appointed for life, essentially, who are
Well,
your.
why couldn't I
So
sleep with the younger ones?
it's essentially a deep state, so to speak, uh, as deep as you can get it.
It's just I
Um,
don't think you understand how easy it is to sleep with any man.
how what?
How easy it is to sleep with any man in
Okay,
this world.
so can you clarify this for me? I know we're supposed to be talking about Cuba and all that, but what is it actually like for a woman to sleep with a man? Like, is it a big deal? Because sometimes it seems like it's a big deal for a
That is
woman to
completely
do it.
about ideology.
Is it about ideology? Is it about how horny you are, how attracted you are to the guy?
No,
Is every woman, irrespective of ideology, more capable of justifying, obviously, like fucking somebody they're like more attracted
I
to,
hate the term fucking.
or
It
having
is
sex
so
having
bad.
sex with somebody they're more attracted to? I mean, obviously, right? That makes
Well,
sense.
it
Is
depends.
that true? Can you just
Uh,
clarify? I'm very confused.
no, there are people who don't
I
have
was
sex
raised
until
Catholic.
marriage. There are people who don't have sex until monogamy, which I think is smart. There are people that only have casual sex because they don't have the ability to involve, like, with affection and with respect, and they are nice about it, so they just don't hurt people. So it has to do with ideology and with what you actually want or are prepared for, and then it's also the amount of people that you're attracted to, because for me it's a problem that I am attracted to one person every 2 years. I find it really hard to find people that are my type, which is hilarious because I am bisexual, and but it's hard to find like people with original thoughts. And I can't remember where I was going with this. Oh, your question. Yes,
Yeah. Is it a big deal? How is it? You're
it's
saying it depends. It depends on a lot of context.
apparently some women have a more porous aura. Therefore, you absorb male energy because men like kind of like they use sex to release emotion. Like if a man's really stressed, he can have sex and feel relaxed again.
Well, you know what's funny about what you're saying is that the Lulu Marie sort of sexist, la la la, like Latina
What is that?
English woman voiced character, Lulu Marie. She runs the Jolly Roger Tavern and she does the radio announcements and
I don't know about that.
on Tropico, the one that you said was racist.
Oh yeah, it's racist.
But like in a sense, she is sort of like because she's so promiscuous, she's fluid bonded with like a lot of the people in the fucking state apparatus.
I mean,
it's
people
funny.
people wear condoms and kisses
Yes.
aren't.
No, I don't mean literally,
bonded.
but I mean sort of. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So if you just do a doggy with a condom, then it's not that intimate. I get that.
Well, yeah, it's the 21st century. It's disgusting to not wear condoms with strangers. Like, what are you trying to like spread another pandemic?
Well, anyways, I think that the feminine element of society as a bonding matrix underpinning these sort of mechanistic systems. So like I like Tropico as a sim game. I'll just run through the systems real quick. Okay, you got supply chains, you got education, healthcare, police. Obviously, you got to provide like some city has that. You got to provide support for those in different neighborhoods where people will be unhappy with you. And you won't have any educated people. So the scarcity of educated people is like a really key thing, and this is where importing communist revolutionaries is like a key part of the game. I like how the game forces you to get more cash flow because you can't borrow and grow internally because you don't have a big interior to grow into. You have limited amounts. You'll extend, you'll get more mines and industries and plantations as you go inward and get the other half of the island. But like in some city, you cover the whole map. And it's like America or like Brazil or Chile to a lesser extent. It's like you have a lot of room, right? It's a different kind of economy. So being an island economy, you have to be really focused on exports and on trade deals to get that extra bit of cash. And you have to do geopolitical favors. And that Cuba has always been a geopolitical linchpin of the Western Hemisphere.
Well,
right?
they don't have enough resources. Like this is why I don't.
But they do have some key resources.
Well, like just sugar and like I just think it's stupid to. This is why I think it's so ridiculous to talk about communism versus capitalism because the Soviet Union and Cuba could not be more different. Could not be more different than Korea or China or the capitalism in Chile or the capitalism in the States. They're so different that they can't they can't be lumped in any possible way, and Cuba can't thrive because they don't build resources. If communism was installed in Chile, it would work because we can make everything.
That sounds like a statement that I got to take you to task on. Well, what do you mean by communism?
I mean, kind of exiting the world market a little bit and not having
is that
to
what
be
communism
fed.
is being a nice not doing trade?
I mean, it's not what it is about, but it's historically it's always been a consequence.
So what you're really saying is that Chile could operate as a sub-federalized, as a confederated polity in which localities kind of govern themselves. There's a very loose level of federal ruling and legality. Maybe there's a common court system.
No, but it's shit luck. It doesn't have to do with anything else. The fact that we grow shit tons of food, wine, we have so much water, so much electricity.
Well, it's not shit luck. It's good luck.
So much. No, but I mean it's shit luck in the fact that it's just luck. Like that Cuba can produce anything, and that Chile can produce everything, minerals, wood, so much wood.
Right.
It's luck.
Well, there's a heck of a lot of territory within the long strip of Chile, and underneath the surface, and Chile has an observatory that's like one of the world's leading observatories for astronomy.
Yeah, Elon Musk is gonna fuck it up with his internet satellites.
Well,
but
you just have to go to a higher orbit for your astronomy satellites.
Hopefully, but
I mean, there's more space.
I think it's worth it. Like internet for everyone is more important than astronomical research, even though I find astronomical research very important.
Well, that debate's just another example of the internet having these superficial false dichotomies for clickbaiting. because of course there's more space in which we can have astronomy satellites orbiting the Earth, and there's no real problem
Well,
between
people,
these two.
I just need people to understand that the smartest people are not on the internet. The smartest people are doing stuff. So the internet isn't an accurate description of what humanity is thinking.
Like for example, I'm on the internet, but I hired people who are more intelligent than me to do specific engineering things, and that's where I get most of my
And
value
they're
from.
doing that. They're not on
Yeah,
Twitter.
yeah, and I manage the money so I can pay them. But I wouldn't have anybody on staff if I didn't
No,
get value out of them.
no, you're brilliant. So I think in your specific line of work,
Don't
you can do both.
you don't have to tell me that, but thank
I
you.
love complimenting people, and you're brilliant.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, anyways, so being brilliant, I love sim games. I love the numbers. I love what they can say about society. I want to do one thing I really want to do in game design later in my career is mimetic games. So you're familiar with memes as like, haha, look, this is a funny thing
Of course, but
that I.
also the old meaning.
Well, the old meaning is from like 2003, like
Well,
or
that's old, man.
yeah, sure.
That's
So
almost 20 years.
So in 2003, I was reading books like The Electric Meme, and I was like thinking about memetics as a whole comprehensive field of how all thought and ideas evolve. And it's like a really grandiose. It's like anthropology is like a part of that, really.
I
You
love
know,
that.
I mean, you would have to think of memetics as actually encompassing a number of academic disciplines, right? Within the humanities and really within the sciences, because you can do memetic science, you can understand memes, and people who are really good at internet marketing kind of get this, and they at least have an aesthetic sensibility that where they can intuitively design good content and good campaign ideas that will go viral or that have a probability of going viral, that for the
Wait,
cost,
for video games, right?
for anything.
Well, I am very
Oh,
happy.
but but what I want to do for video games is have AI characters in the game that have memes, and they can communicate with each other and pass memes to each other. The memes can mutate in a game of telephone like fashion, and you, the player, can also impart memes to them. And then we can have like an AI like devil that I call the thinker, who's in the background, like in the Dali painting. He's in the shadow of the hand that is the sort of imitation of the Gaian entity that's in the water. Do you know what I'm talking about? Metamorphosis of Narcissus.
Yes.
And there's the little goat poking his head over, and there's Narcissus, and there's the characters, right? So this is kind of what I want to build, but like more simply, I want to design a new type of gameplay based on having to think about ideas and what people are saying and what they are thinking. And this is what Chris Crawford has been trying to do, and he didn't quite get the formula right in a way that would be fun for people. So I'm also helping him produce his final game called Le Mort d'Arthur, which is Thomas Mallory legend.
Remote.
Yeah, it's a Norman legend of this British Britain Saxon history before the well before the Battle of Hastings, right? Arthur is really like sort of a Dark Ages character. So it's like I was just reading through like a prototype, and it's basically like at this point it's like a linear interactive fiction. A lot of people have done interactive fiction, but anyway, it's a project I'm working on.
Well, yeah. I Tropico did give me faith because
Okay.
I think that it's really nice to have a video game that is produced by somebody who really loved this idea, and because with the mercantilization of media, like media makes so much money right now. So it's hard for video games and movies and shows and music to not be in the sausage factory. So everything you see that it's outside of the sausage factory is very exciting.
Yeah, so I mean, in this case, it was a German publisher, Calypso, who had picked it up. The first Tropico was sort of like, yeah, you're like running an island, but there wasn't a dictator character. The second Tropico was a pirate utopia sim building game, city game, a pirate city. And actually, that does sound kind of neat, but that's from like 2002, right? So it's old. I'm probably not gonna be able to find it, and that's where they introduced the beardy funny guy as a pirate. So then he became the Presidente in Tropico 3, which was designed by this Sofia, Bulgaria-based company. Um, and they did 4 and 5 as well, which are sort of successive developments of the same game. I'm getting pinged, but we'll just let that be in the pod. And I'll deal with them later. Um, and so 5 was like, the last game they did, and then they lost the contract. So Calypso gave it to this German company, and so Tropico 6 is like a more bulked out Tropico 5 I don't like the interface as much, and the but whatever, and it doesn't have as much of the fun, irreverent vibes as Tropico 5 did.
Okay, well, it's been too long, man. It's like the Handmaiden's Tale. Like it could have been a fucking email, dude. Like, why did they make it so long? Because they wanted more money. That's why movies are better
What
because
are you
they
talking
fit.
about? Why they made 6 Tropico games?
No, no. Well, yeah, Six Tropico games was successive, and
Over
also
20 years though.
so still like
Okay.
you have to move on. It's like
Stop
people
it.
who keep coming up with the same album. Like Oasis has the same album like what 6 times, like because they want money. Like it doesn't. You're not offering anything fresh.
Well, that may be the case, but think about it from the point of view of this Bulgarian game development company. Like, this is a good gig.
Right.
They've got it for years. They get to maintain jobs. People have a career in the company.
It's like
It's then they can go do other game companies in Bulgaria as well,
it,
right?
it's like Adam Sandler. Like you can tell in some movies that he's an artiste, and
Yeah.
you can tell in some movies that he wants another house.
Well, I mean, but this was my point: is that the Germans made Tropico 6 very straight faced, and it's much like the music is more accurate. It's not a smattering of ska and flamenco
Flamenco
and all the stuff that's from different cultures. It is a more authentic Cuban folk music
from different
soundtrack,
continents, even.
also as it happens, and then there's no like sexist character who's making these jokes, these irreverent, sexist, but kind of funny jokes, to be fair. And this is the thing: Bulgarians don't give a fuck about what people in California might think about it.
Well, this
But
is
they
the
also
thing.
didn't. And this is where they fucked up. We know that they didn't give a fuck about what anybody Latino would think about it. But from their point of view, in Bulgaria, like, yeah, everyone's a dictator. Every economy is fucking hustling up from the ground floor to like claw its way out of poverty, including us making this game in 2014
But
and earlier.
the whole PC thing,
Uh,
like everybody turns off Netflix and they're convinced that there's this PC liberal media, like the whole world has become like trans worshippers and black people worshippers, and people convince themselves about this either for good or for bad, and then they turn off the TV and they're in exactly the same world as in the 70s. Like, do you people who think like, oh, the trans like people are everywhere, it's like, how many trans people do you know? How many are in your office? The world's
um,
exactly the same, so it makes sense for Bulgaria to be exactly the same.
I do get to see content from a lot of trans people on Twitter in both games, and like there were some like non-binary NFT artists that I followed the other day because someone did like a kind of roll call. So I thought, yeah, like I want to see more of what these artists are doing, and I'm curious to see what kind of art comes out of trans people versus cis people. If there's any difference, if there's anything
Yeah,
particularly
there's more
particular to like the dysphoric experience.
there's more imagination. Like every love story between straight white people has been done. There's no way you can make something fresh right now.
There was a game called Dysphoria with a four, just kind of throw you off a little, by Anna Anthropy, who's a trans woman, and it was sort of about what it's like to have gender dysphoria, and it was an interesting piece. So people can Google that. It's probably still online. It's long. It was like came out like years ago, like 2011 or something. So yeah, like I think games have a lot of potential
Yeah,
to tackle all this stuff.
I hope so.
And then I
But it's
think
so niche.
so. Like what I took away, I mean, the TLDR of like Cuba Libre versus Tropico for me is that what I took away from the Cuba Libre is that the specific instances of these people
And it's
were
done with respect.
well, it's more, yeah. Tropico is much more irreverent. Haha, presidente. Haha, Tropico. My dear, la barba. They don't even have really much Spanish in the game. I mean, that's the funny thing
I
about
mean,
it.
in the Spanish, there is
It's badly
it's not
pronounced
Spanish.
by non-native Spanish-speaking voice actors.
It's not badly pronounced. It's an entirely different word.
Exactly. Okay, fine.
It's like
So,
saying bird versus beard.
but moving past this, I took away key things that I wouldn't be able to take away from a game, from Cuba Libre. And that was like, oh wow, Batista was actually kind of left, but then he sold out, and then he decided to come back. Like I didn't know all that. that Batista was basically asked to step down by the CIA, and that Castro had won relatively few actual military victories. So to call him a military genius is even an over. Well, he was more of a good stuntsman. He managed to front.
Batiste?
No, Castro in the invasion campaign.
Come on, could you take over a country with some guns
No,
and
but don't
machetes?
you remember in the documentary that it was like they basically if they freaked them out, and then Batista kind of like he lost all of his allies, and it all kind of caved,
Yeah,
you
but
know.
it came by they physically going there and convincing them all and teaching them how to fight with machetes. It's insane. Like, could you
Yeah,
take over a country with 20 friends?
sure.
If they didn't have nukes, of
But
course.
the point is that they didn't really have to prosecute the military campaign as far as you might imagine, because the psychological campaign was already
Well,
won.
they flipped them, and that is also
It's cool,
it's
yeah,
also how do you call it, army genius,
yeah.
to be able to turn people. That's how we liberated Latin America with Martin. He did that. He moved like to different towns and he convinced everyone.
But I don't think that kind of military campaign works in the modern era because the information advantage of that amount of fog of war is no longer real, right? There's
No, no,
satellite and drones,
face
everything,
recognition.
right? Yeah,
Well, that's what's terrifying about today.
right. And
That
then you can hunt everybody who you think like you can have an AI modeling who seems to be tipping towards being a part of this insurrection. You can be
you're
tracking every move they fucking make.
yeah, that's
Unbelievable.
what's scary about today is that the overlords are like, I don't think we have a chance. Guns are not going to do anything.
Yeah, this is why I'm like down with the Second Amendment thing to an extent. But like what like let's get real. Let's look at the numbers of like gun saturation in the country. And like obviously there are cases where people didn't have guns, they Pol Pot, and a lot of people died. So there's that. Those are outliers. And then you have all these other countries, right? And all this other time in history. So it seems to me like in a country like Venezuela where all the other institutions failed, that a high level of gun ownership, they have a big gun culture in Venezuela. It seems like more people die as a consequence of the guns. And like, yes, of course, you can kill somebody who was about to kill you with your gun, but like statistically, you're more like people are more likely to die from guns when there are a lot of guns. It's not that weird. I'm not even like fucking Michael Moore saying this, okay? Like I'm like just a reasonable guy who's like, we made the sharks' brain mass larger, and as a consequence, the sharks got smarter. What time is it? Woof, baby. We really dig. No, but you know that's as long as it took to kind of like cover this thing.
I guess.
And then yeah, I mean my takeaway from the game is like economics is really hard. The
True.
balance of how do you manage the supply chain centrally? It's like really complicated. You can fuck anything up, and it can have a cascading effect. And your intentions really have nothing to do with it. And this is why Gauss plan failed at the Soviet scale, and this is why Castro failed at the national scale of even a small
And
economy.
I really think a big part of that is the personality cult that we have in our society. Like
Yes,
the people who have the personality to get to the top are not the smartest, more qualified people.
that's true.
And I think that's a big problem.
Well, and like the Great Leap Forward was a big that was like the biggest communist blunder in the history of like statist communist blunders. And all of these blunders were done under like no information technology network ability. And the information about the failures of the Great Leap Forward didn't really trickle up to Mao. So in Castro's case, he like knows people are starving. It's like there's not so much to hide. Like it's in Havana. It's it's you can see it. You can
Mm-hmm.
see it. And then Castro died. Raul, who's the original communist, who kind of influenced Fidel in that way.
It was kind of the
He's
books guy.
also he hasn't really changed anything significantly. He's kind of kept the status quo. They have like played. Obama gave them an olive branch, and then it got taken away by Trump. And like that's like I don't see why Biden does not end sanctions with Cuba right away.
I
I
mean,
mean,
he
it's not
does. He does
1962,
seem
bro.
like he's working.
It
Like,
could get there.
regardless of what you think of him,
There's a lot on
I
the
thought
table.
he was gonna warm the seat, and I thought that was a nice thing. But I really enjoy it when a public servant serves the public, good
Yeah,
or bad. He goes to the office and he does the thing.
yeah, Bidenomics is a whole project. He's got a lot on his plate trying to take care of this, American recovery thing. But
Does he give you an FDR vibe
well,
in the way that he's been ruling?
that's what everyone's saying. But it's not so much that. So this is what's cool about Biden, relatively speaking, is that unlike FDR, there isn't really a cult of personality around Biden. and we all kind of expect him to die. So he is basically the nominee director of like Democrats Incorporated, which is adopting a neo-Keynesian sort of MMT friendly outlook on how much fiscal they can get away with having subsidizing from the Fed. And this is something that Argentina hasn't really been able to do effectively, and that Cuba wasn't able to do. All they can do is sell natural, or like Venezuela, they can sell natural resources and hoard dollars or hoard cucks, as it were. So they ended the cuck as well. That was like another step forward for Cuba.
Like
So
the U.S.
they're not cucking themselves. Well, no, the UF is what's interesting about that is the UF is an index, and it's attempting to index inflation so that the mortgages have real yield. For bankers, it's like a better business. Whereas the cuck is like a more simple, like this is worth $1 kind of a deal. So the whole point of the UF is that you get to keep printing pesos as you issue these mortgages, right? That's like the whole beauty of banking.
Yes.
But then you get to you have your cake, and then with the indexing, you also get to eat it. If the cake does not turn into crumbles from inflation over, like with the Yende time, or with when Pinochet was trying to put it back in the bottle, he couldn't do it.
We love chicha.
Banking was really hard to do. Well, I don't love chicha.
Well, you're not from here.
I suppose I'm not. And that is perhaps a very good way to close.
Okay.
All right.
So, let's